Good morning, dear student. Now, in this, today's we have the science class, and we are going to discuss some remaining points of chapter second. So, today we are discussing about the separating components of mixtures. Earlier in earlier class, we are discussing about the mixtures solution, a different type of solution, and their properties. Now, in this session or in this class, we are discussing about how we can separate the components of different mixtures. Means how we can getting the components of different from the mixtures. How we can obtain the different components from given mixtures. Either it is mischievous or immischievous, means completely mixed or not. So in that first we are going to start or discussing the filtration. So very simple process of filtration. So filtration means it is used to separate the insoluble impurities from the mixtures with the help of a filter paper. Here what is the main important thing that in filtration, that the component should be insoluble, means which not dissolve or which not soluble in a given solvent. So if impurities or you can say the components that is in a presence in the form of insoluble, means which not soluble in that given mixtures, then we can obtain by using this filtration. So simply this in this process we use the filter paper. Suppose that for how we can so we can just the arrangement, you can see this type of arrangement is there. This is one beaker, and we have this funnel, this type of funnel, and here we put a filter paper. Hence the filter paper by folding, making in a round shape, we are putting here water, simply filter paper. Now then we pour it water. Suppose that we are taking the solution of sand and water. Simply for example, if we want to separate the sand from water, so this is water, sand plus water. So we put it or pour it into this one, this beaker. This contains water, this contains sand and water. First in this beaker we have the solution of water, we have the mixtures of water and sand. So simply you put into this funnel with having the filter paper. So simply you can see that water is passed from the filter paper. Simply this water is passed through the filter paper, and on the top or on the filter paper there will be you can find the residue, that is water, sand. So in this way we can separate the sand from the water by the mixture of sand and water. So this is the base simple filtration process. Now what is the basic principle, means what things is used or what the idea or fact or principle used in this method. So that is the insoluble impurities cannot pass through small pores of a filter paper. So fact is that the insoluble impurities cannot pass through the filter paper because the size of the pores on the filter paper is very small, and as compared to the size of impurities, or you can say the sand, means the size of the sand is much more larger as compared to the filter paper pores. So that sand cannot pass through the filter paper, and that remains on the filter paper. So in this way we can separate water and sand separately. We can also separate another type of components which are not soluble in water. So simply we can separate insoluble impurities in this method. Okay, I think you understand. This simple filter is a very simple process. Generally you can use the cloth at your homes to filter the water. So suppose if some impurities in the form of twigs of leaves and grass and some pepper, some bits of other things, so that can be floating impurities or insoluble impurities, that can all you can simply filter with the help of this filtration, by the process of filtration. Now next one is evaporation. It is also very simple process. From the smaller classes we already learned about, or many times we discuss about this process. So it is the process of separating the solid substance from a liquid which is soluble. Now we are getting the solid substance. In this method we are getting the solid substance from a liquid which is in a soluble state, which is in a soluble, which means already that substance is soluble in a that mixture. For example, we are getting the salt from the sea water. So simply in the filter, the water is filled and allowing to the sunlight or a sun heat. So due to the sun heat or sunlight, the water is evaporated and finally the salt left behind in that filter or area. So now what is the basic principle involved in this? It involves the one of the components has low boiling point which evaporate easily. So now here we have two things. One is water, another thing is water. Salt means that salt, common salt, NaCl, and second one is water. So the one of the components has the low boiling point which evaporates easily than the other one having the high boiling point. So black dye from ink can be separated by this method. So in the case of sea water, so the boiling point of water is lower as compared to the salt. So that water is first evaporated and then we can find it or left residue that is in the form of salt. So there are the difference in the boiling point. One have the high boiling point, another have a low boiling point. So here water have the low boiling point and salt or NaCl, sodium chloride, have a high boiling point. So water evaporated easily due to the sunlight and then we are getting a water salt. So these are the two methods. Next we are so now you can note down in your notebook, then we discuss next method. So now note down in your notebook. So now the next one is centrifugation process. Centrifugation process is the new process for you. About the filtration and the evaporation you learned in the previous class in a smaller class, but this centrifugation process, mostly this process it is used in the medical science or a medical field. So it is the process in which the components of colloidal solutions or a mixture are separated by rotating the colloidal solutions at the high speed in the centrifugal machine. There is one centrifugal machine. So in that centrifugal machine, whatever the colloidal solution which we want to separate in different components, so that for example simply we have a test tube. Okay, in test tube we are taking the blood sample. Simply we want to identify the different components or for the blood test. We are taking the blood sample in the test tube and that test tube put into the centrifugal machine, and that centrifugal machine is a rotator at very high speed. Means the speed of rotation is a main thing or a basic fundamental process in which water, due to this high rotating or spinning a high speed, that separate the different components. So due to rotating at the high speed, that blood into water into the centrifugal machine, it can be separated into its different components. So for blood test, this method is used. So this centrifugation means water rotate at the high speed from the center. okay, from the center. So there are some this machine, and we are putting the different sample, maybe sample of urine or other type of colloidal solution maybe, and then rotate at the high speed in that machine. Okay, so the process in which the components of colloidal solution or mixtures are separated by rotating the colloidal solution at the high speed. Now, what is the basic principle involved in this? It involves when a mixture is rotated at the high speed, means when we any mixtures we want to separate it in its different components. So when it rotates at the high speed, so due to difference in the density, what happened? The lighter particles are floating on the surface on the top, and the heavier particles or heavier components that are settles down at the bottom. So means the density also play very crucial role here. Suppose that in the blood or milk, in a milk या फिर colloidal solution of blood. So blood is rotated at a very high speed. So floating part that can be separated, and the heavier part that settles down at the bottom in a test tube. So it's a very important method in the medical science or medical field. So this method is used in mostly the pathological lab or laboratory. Now next one. For example, these are some examples. Cream from the milk. Cream from milk. If we want to separate cream from the milk at the home, by the churning, by the process of churning, we separate the butter from the milk at home. So just you see that ladies in the rural areas. So blood and the urine test in the lab means different components or different components or elements if you want to separate or find from the blood sample or urine sample, that can be done by this process centrifugation process. This process also used in the washing machines, dryers. It is stressed by the clothes, it's spinning or rotating a high speed in the washing machine. So next, this all are the examples where this centrifugation process is used. Now next one, separation of a immiscible liquid, means which not mix completely. That type of mixtures we can separate by the separating funnel. Separating funnel means simply this the arrangement you can see in the chemistry lab. So that we can take the mixture which are not mixed to each other, means immiscibles. For example, kerosene and water, oil and water. These are water. Generally, you see that if you take a water in one beaker and put 1 or 2 spoon oil in it, what happen? It makes to different layer, means that not completely mixed. So why this happen? This also happen due to water density, difference in the density of both. Water is higher, means it have the high density, so it remains at the bottoms, and oil have a low density, so it remains at the upper level. So this is also the case where the density again play very crucial or important role. I will draw a diagram of how the separating funnel used. So I think you need to write down. After this, I will draw the diagram and then explain. So separating funnel, it is the process in which the two liquids which do not mix with each other can be separated. Means two mixtures which cannot mix uniformly. Means it's not a homogeneous type. It's, okay, it forms a different layer. So which do not mix with each other can be separated. The basic principle involved in this method, it is based on the difference in density of immiscible liquids. Means there are the difference in the density of two immiscible liquids. Just I told you that in the case of water and kerosene and oil, means water have the high density, so at bottom it's remain at the bottom, and kerosene or oil have the low density, so it remains on the top or floating on the top. So by passing that water through the separating funnel, and that water we are collecting in a different beakers. So when that layer is completely finished from there, means totally water passed through that separating funnel and collected in the beaker. So thereafter we stop the cork and that kerosene or oil remain in that separating funnel. So in this way we can separate kerosene oil and water, petrol and water, removal of slag. This is very important. This method is used in the extraction of iron. Simply this ore of iron, magnetite, hematite, they are heated at a high temperature and changed or converted into the molten form, liquid form, and that liquid form passed through the water separating funnel. Means it forms the different layers according to based on their impurities. So which have the high density that remains at the bottom, and which have the low density they are in a floating stage. So in this way we can separate by using the separating funnel. Okay, so these are some important example. These are the most important example. This can be asked in exam, that how can you separate. This question may be asked in exam, that how can you by which methods you can separate slag. Slag means what? Impurities. What? Impurities. Slag means what? Impurities. So how can you separate impurities from the molten iron? So simply you can write your answer by separating a funnel. Yeah, if the question is asked that how can you separate kerosene from the water and petrol from the water, so by using separating a funnel. Okay. So now pause the video and write down this all things. Now write it. So now the next process is the chromatography. Chromatography, this word is coming from the Greek, which means chroma. Chroma means color. Chroma means what? Color. Means if we can separate the different color particle or color of material or a dye from a different given a mixture. So chromatography is a very advanced technique, very mostly this is used in a forensic science or forensic lab to find the blood, different drugs from the blood sample. So this is an advanced technique, very modern technique of forensic lab. In a forensic lab, this method is generally used. It is based on the principle of the differential, the adsorption, the substance which is adsorbed to more extent moves slowly, varies, the other moves faster and get separated. It is used to separate the colored component. Means what? Suppose that we have the one solution. Suppose that a blood solution, or in blood there are the different type of drugs is there. So they have the different properties of adsorbing. So means which are absorbing large, it can run less distance. Okay, and which have the less absorbing properties, it's move faster or a high distance, or you can run through the tall distance. Simply, for example, we can also separate the natural occurring pigments. Just for example, xanthophyll, chlorophyll. Chlorophyll from the leaves, leaf extract, convert, make it paste, and take a sample or 1 or 2 drop of that green colored pigment and put it into the one paper, and then put into the beaker. So it can run some distance. The different components run a different distance. Suppose that like this, we have paper, and putting simply here one line or a mark, and we are putting here one water, the drop of water, this chlorophyll means the paste be formed by the extraction of water leaves, extracting the leaves and put one drop. So what are the components? If different component in this, this can run a distance. So by marking here, suppose that here we can getting the red color, here we getting a yellow color, means different color run different distance. So on the basis of that we can find it or we can separate it from a given sample. So for example, a mixture of a blue and red ink. Suppose that the ink is given and we want to find the blue dye or a red dye or a red color. So this can be separated by the chromatography. To separate drugs from the blood, simply if anyone or the person taking the different drugs or drugs and we want to separate it from the blood, so by taking the sample of blood and applying this chromatography method we can find it or we can separate it. Naturally occurring pigments, as I told you that chlorophyll or xanthophyll from the carrot, like naturally occurring pigments or naturally colored material, it can be separated by this method. Basic principle: the colored components can be separated using an adsorbent on which these are adsorbed to different extent. Means they have the different property up to the they have different adsorbing properties. So on the basis of that we can find it at the different level, different color, and in that way we can separate it. Now next, the sublimation. Sublimation means what? In this sublimation is a process in which the substance is directly undergoes or directly changes from solid to vapor without undergoing a liquid. Means solid directly changes into water vapor. For example, naphthalene balls, kapoor, this we use for the worship, for other occasions, for the Deepavali or any puja worship. So that kapoor that directly change into water vapor. Iodine, naphthalene, anthracene. Means one is a volatile material and another is a non-volatile. Volatile means that directly change into the vapor. For example, this acetone or thinner we use in nail polish. So that is water, that volatile material, means which can change into vapor. So this process sublimation means it is a process in which the one solid changes into vapor whereas the other does not. Means suppose that the solution or a mixture of ammonium chloride and sodium chloride is given. Ammonium chloride and sodium chloride, that is given to you, and you want to separate it. You want to find separate it. You want to find the different components. So here what? This ammonium chloride change into what? Vapor, but it remains still in a residue or solid form. So we are getting what? Ammonium chloride. Means ammonium chloride change into the vapor on a heating, and it can remains as a residue. Iodine from the sand. So sand cannot change or transform into the vapor, but iodine can change on a heating. Directly can change from solid to vapor or in the gaseous state without undergoing a liquid state. Then kapoor and sand, naphthalene plus sodium chloride, and anthracene plus sand. So this anthracene, these are the example. Usme this question may be asked in exams. So give some examples which undergoes the sublimation. So you can write it ammonium chloride, iodine, kapoor, naphthalene, anthracene. These all are the examples of substance which undergoes the process of sublimation. Now there are some also remains some process like crystallization, fractional distillation, and distillations that we discuss the next class. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the class. Thank you once again. Now you pausing the video and note down these all things in your notebook. I hope you enjoyed this class. Stay safe, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.